Welcome back to Ride JBI. I'm JB. In this video, I'm going to show you how to install the JBI Titanium WP Pro Shock Comp Adjuster Piston. This is going to be for the 2023 and newer WP Linkage and WP PDS Explorer shocks. To the left of me, I have the componentry that we're going to be working on. This is the WP Compression Adjuster Assembly. You will find this again in all the 2023 and newer WP Linkage shocks and the 2024 and on WP Explorer PDS shocks. We have already removed that from the shock. We're not going to detail how to do this in that video or in this video. And then here I have the componentry that we provide you with that comes in the JBI WP Shock DIY kit. And then here I have some of the tools that we'll be utilizing today. Now, I'm not going to show you how we install it exactly here at Ride JBI in terms of the tooling that we use, because I understand not everybody probably has the same tooling that we have. Here at the shop, we have a specific tool for removing and holding this compression adjuster, but I realize a lot of people don't have that, so we're going to utilize some different tooling instead, likely tooling that you probably have or have access to, so that way this video is more relatable to what you can do at your place. So to get right into it, first thing we want to utilize is a T20 Torx, and we're going to utilize that to remove the Torx screw that holds on our compression adjusters. Now please do this one at a time, as there's a few pieces in here. We'll set the screw over here. Now there's a very thin washer spring that's going to want to pop out, so don't lose that. Oh, there it is right there. So set that there. And this is a little bit of a compression fit because the housing is plastic, so it might take a little bit of wiggling to get off. So that's what we need to work on. Again, usually we're going to utilize our tool here at the shop to fit this in there, but I understand not everybody has that. But what you have probably, it may be some Nipex, which you can adjust to grip our flat sides perfectly, or you might have a parallel jaw vise, such as this one right here. And in that case, we're going to find our flat edges and grip it right inside of there. Now, as you can see, we have a 10mm nut. So first, let's remove that. We're going to use a 10mm socket. I kind of like the deep ones, keeps your fingers out of the way. All right, after you have the nut loose, you can grab the bottom of the piston and gently kind of lift up on everything. Please be aware of any shims that might be stuck to the piston face. We're not going to reuse any, but it's still not fun to lose stuff. Let's set this aside, and let's grab at this bottom place right here at the spring and the high-speed plate, and just carefully set everything over here. Now if we look back down here, we'll see a small ring or a small shim right here. Please ensure that that stays inside of there as the spring pushes directly against that. Now you can see on this one's kind of guggy. It's got some shit on it. This shock is fairly new, so it's nothing we have done. We just think it is the type of oil that WP is using, and it is, I wouldn't say attacking the parts, but it's definitely leaving behind kind of like a film a little bit. Now if we zoom in, we can see not all the shims came off of our compression post, and we want to ensure that all the shims did. So I got this one off with my fingernail, but I see one more still there. So I'm going to use the other shim to see if I can get underneath it, but this shim's kind of thick, so we'll try a thinner one, or even maybe a razor blade. Okay, this razor blade's perfect. Now we have confirmed that there are no shims left on this post, and it is bare and exactly how we want it. So now we're ready to start installing the JBI componentry that we provided you with to this WP compression adjuster housing. All right guys, so this is the shim stack that we removed. We're not going to reuse any of this, so please just kind of discard it. This is the original high-speed plate. We're not going to use that either. Discard that as well. And then this is the original compression piston. We're going to discard that as well. Just a quick note, this is what it looks like. This is the geometry of the piston. If you're just curious what it looks like on a WP Pro shock, the piston looks like this. So you can see that the similar six-hole port geometry that they're using, we are adapting to your OEM shock. This style of piston design is what you commonly see in all Showa, KYB, OEM shocks, and kit shocks. So now that we know what not to use, we can focus on what to do next. We'll start with our little washer that stays inside of there for our spring seat. So let's please drop this in. Next up is going to be our spring. And then now we're providing you with a new cage. This cage is going to fit in there and be a nice little snug fit. Next, we're going to assemble our JBI compression piston. We have that here. And you can see on a zip tie, I have the rest of the stuff that you need, and we already have it laid out in the order that you need. The key thing you need to ensure that you don't mess up the order on is going to be this shim stack right here. So we can cut this zip tie. And then leave everything on there. So let's grab our 2 wave washers first. That are these 2. Now it might look like one at first glance, but you can actually separate them. They are directional. They can sit that way, or you can reverse them, or they can sit that way. Now it does matter how we install them into the piston. So when it comes to the piston, the pointy top is going to be facing up when we do that. Now please ensure that we align these with each other when you install them. So as you can see, each shim is placed directly on top of each other and it matches each other's shape. Next up, we can slide off our check plate. That is just going to go directly against our piston, and it is going to cover our wave shims, allowing this check plate to go inside. That is how the shock will backfill on the rebound stroke. And now we have our shim stack. I'm going to hold on to it with my fingers and then slide a very thin Allen right in the middle to keep everything sorted. Because what I want next is our JBI titanium high-speed plate adjuster. So now that we already have the cage installed on here, our high-speed spring, our adjuster is going to be what is installed next. As you can see, it's going to sit almost flush with our compression adjuster post. If yours is not almost sitting flush with the post, that means your high-speed clicker was not backed out before you had disassembled the shock. So please ensure of that, because it'll make the next part of installing our shims easier to do. Cool, now that that is done, I'm going to use both fingers to hold this in place, and we're going to line up our center adjuster with this hole and then slide everything down. The cage that we provide you, this black piece right here, that is going to rest just over the edge of our check plate shim and hold all of this componentry in place. Cool. Now if you did that just perfect, you'll see that we'll have no gap between our gold piston and our black JBI cage. Now if I let go, there'll be a small gap, but we're going to tighten this down in a second. But first, just make sure that by hand, everything is square, everything's straight, you don't have anything raised up a little bit, one way or awkward. Now we're ready to reinstall the nut that we had already removed. I'm going to put a small dab of orange Loctite on it. If you don't have orange, you can use red or blue also. Orange is advertised as the strength of red, but with the removability of blue, meaning you don't need to utilize heat in order to remove the nut afterwards. We get this off of Amazon, and we can also buy it from O'Reilly's as well. It's something we just picked up one day a couple years ago, and I really became a fan of the product. So we got some Loctite in the threads. I pushed it through on the, let's say, application nozzle. I'm just kind of using that to get the Loctite all throughout the inside of the threads. Now, this is a steel compression post, but it is hollow. If we look at our JBI suspension torque specs guide, we'll see that for an M6 thread that is made out of steel material, has fine threads, and we're using a locking compound, meaning that is lubricating the threads as we tighten down. We see our torque spec for this is 45 inch-pounds. In foot-pounds, that's 3.75 foot-pounds. And for Newton meters, it is 5 Newton meters. Please utilize a 1/4 inch torque drive. We find that anything larger than a 1/4 inch torque drive tends to not be as accurate for the lower torque values that are used for this smaller componentry on suspension. So right now I'm updating this to 45. Now I'm going to push down on this piston a little bit with my finger just to push everything in place and ensure that everything stays in place as we torque it down. Because if it's not in place and you start torquing it down, well, it'll just kind of force it and it'll likely bend or ruin some shims. No problem if you do. Just call us or send us an email. We'll help you out with some replacements. But likely you're going to be very excited to go ride and you're not going to want to do that. I myself have that same feeling. Cool, so we have reached our torque spec. What I was saying earlier is I might too get very excited when I'm working on my bike and I know it's going to be better. So I always get bummed if I work on it and something goes wrong and then I got to wait a few more days. So please take your time. I'm going to take a little bit of WD-40 and spray it right through the center of this adjuster, just in case any Loctite maybe got down there while we were working on it. We don't want that Loctite to cure and make this adjuster ineffective. So very small amount. We can hurt it go in there. That's just pushing out any Loctite that may have gotten in there. Likely we didn't get any in there, but it's just a good extra step to take. So as you can see, we have our new JBI Titanium WP Pro Compression Adjuster Piston mounted up. We got it torqued down. We have our JBI cage, which holds our check valve assembly in order. So essentially you now have your stock compression adjuster, much more similar to the WP Pro Compression Adjuster. In terms of the design of it, we got the 6 holes and how that applies pressure to the shims and how the shims bend open under that pressure. So you can expect your now OEM shock to work much more similar in terms of performance level and tunability as the kit shock. So from here, we're going to put on back our propeller high-speed adjuster. We want our check shim next. Now the peak of it is going to be going up towards us, very similar to the wave shims we installed earlier. This is the hex on the inside. So this will locate with the hex here, and it's going to cover that shim. And then lastly, our T20 tapered Torx screw will install right into the center. And then I just like to do these finger tight. As you tighten it down, you're going to feel this white piece tighten down against the gray piece. And that wave washer that's in between it got pushed down and compressed. So it'll move a little bit, and then once you feel it go solid, please stop tightening down. Because what will happen is you'll just split the plastic if you keep tightening it. You may want to put these on afterwards if you're utilizing this tool to put this back inside your shock. I like to put these on afterwards, but I don't want to leave out this part of the video in terms of how to reassemble the clickers. Again, we find it easier to put it on after it's been back on the shock, but depending on the tooling you have and what exact workflow you have, that may change. So thank you for checking this out. For more information, please visit ridejbi.com. We have a specific product page on the JBI Titanium WP Shock Compression Adjuster Piston. If you can't purchase this piston individually, that'll just be a product page that just gives you really detailed info, images, and videos about this part, what it does, why we spent all the time designing, testing, and developing this part. Where you can purchase this part is from our JBI WP DIY kits. It'll feature this item, shims on the rest of the shock, and our bladder kits. And you can also get it through our JBI suspension revalve services as well. So again, everything I talked about in this video, you can find at ridejbi.com.